Hello and welcome to the Child Free Guys panel. I'm Cody Hetzel. I'll be one of your moderators.
And I'm LeNora Faye. I'll be your other moderator.
Thank you to our sponsors, presenting sponsor, Childfree Media, champion level sponsor, Child Free Wealth, and other sponsors, 365 Diversity, Best Child Free Life Possible, found on Facebook, Buy Child Free for merchandise, and Childfree Family, Childfree Journals, StopHavingKids.org, StreamYard, and the books The Age of the Child by Kristen Tsetsi and Wild Egg by Jennifer Flint.
And our disclaimer: the opinions expressed within the content are solely the speakers and do not reflect the opinions and beliefs of the event or its affiliates.
Now that we got the dudes coming in, it's a good thing we got that disclaimer. we never needed it more than now.
You're like, wait.
So thank you for.
Sorry, we have our third speaker coming in.
Oh, no,
Graham made it. So
get him on in here, Graham.
Okay.
That's all right. We can go ahead and start off.
We'll
get him in here. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are and what you do and whatever you want to share. Now is the time. Tejas, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Cody. I am Tejas. I am in India at the moment. I am from India. So obviously I am child free, but more than that, I'm also an antinatalist. I'm sort of started calling myself a Benetarian antinatalist. Um, for my day job, I work in IT. I'm a software engineer slash software architect. And over the weekends, all I actually do is read about antinatalism. But yeah, that's all right.
Okay. Robert, you're up.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Robert, here in Atlanta, Georgia, Marietta to be more exact, and I am child free. I'm an engineer by trade, do a little bit of everything on the side, work out, spend a lot of time outdoors. And I told some people last year during the pandemic, I actually learned to knit. I just wanted to learn something totally off the wall. And yeah, been doing that ever since. So very relaxing.
All right.
I love that knitting is off the wall. It makes me kind of want to take it out now.
Well, for me, it was off the wall.
Calm down, man. Calm down.
I realized how big a community it was till I got into it. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of people who knit.
That's awesome.
So, Graham, tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Hey guys, sorry about late. I just had some tech issues. Yeah, my name's Graham. I'm 35 years old. Live in the UK, but immigrated from South Africa about 5 years ago. I work in e-learning, designing courses for designing online courses. And yeah, I've been child free since probably the age of 9 or 10. And yeah, haven't looked back.
All right. And before everyone asks, what's your cat's name that's behind you?
Well, she'll maybe be featuring on the Child Free with Pets in an hour.
Oh, there you go.
But her name is Kara. Yeah, we adopted her from Cyprus. But yeah.
Nice. So what has your child-free journey been like? Robert, go ahead.
I guess my child-free journey started kind of early. I grew up in the church, huge family. So that was supposed to be your life. You get married, you have kids, and that's all I thought about growing up. And I think maybe around, I don't know, maybe 23, 24, 25, I started just, I guess, living life. And I started questioning, okay, well, why is that the only way that I can live a life? Why do I have to, get married, have kids? Like, why does that have to be the course of life? Then I started just exploring, started traveling more and just doing stuff for myself. Because most of my life is always about family and taking care of other people. Then I started taking care of myself. And I just love that life. Just, being able to just get up and take off and see the world, not having to worry about, getting kids out of school, checking someone else's schedule. If I want to just get up and go, I can. So for me, once I got a little taste, the travel bug hit me and I just started living my life for me. I never looked back, and I totally do not regret, having kids. I have, my nieces and nephews. So I have children in my life that I'm helping raise. I do a lot of mentorship work. So for me, that's my way of, taking care of the next generation. But me personally, I I got to the point I don't need children running around my house. So
Awesome. Thank you. Graham, go ahead.
Yeah, so my journey started at a very young age. I was diagnosed at the age of 5 with a genetic condition called EPP porphyria, which led me to being, quite isolated growing up. So I learned to be quite comfortable and frankly quite happy just being alone and with my own company. And I never really felt a void that needed to be filled by another person. And I think this, planted the seed that, you're just better off being alone, and you're quite okay with that. So I consciously made the decision not to have kids. I think, as I mentioned earlier, around the age of about 9 or 10, and it's really never entered my mind since then. I've never second guessed it. I've never questioned it. And having this genetic condition, which is really debilitating, I wouldn't want to pass this on to anyone else. I was in the back of my mind, I always felt a responsibility that it would indeed be very unfair and selfish of me to actually do that. So just as I've gotten older and been a bit more vocal about the child-free choice with friends and family, I've felt nothing but support, really, despite my older brother, who's got 2 kids, saying, oh, you might change your mind, and why you want to make this decision so young. I got sterilized at about the age of 30, and just like Robert mentioned, I haven't looked back, and very, very happy with my child-free life.
Thank you, Graham. Tejas, go ahead.
Sure. I think so. I was brought up in a very traditional / religious background, similar to what Robert was mentioning, although on the in a Hindu religion. But in that sort of background, you are expected to follow a certain path. You finish your education, you get a job, you get married, you have children. And at every stage, I've had questions like, why do I need to go to college or university? Why do I need to get a job? And there were at least some answers to these questions. Even like, why should I be marrying, or why should I be married? There was some answer to that question on a logical level, but I could never find an answer to the question of why should I have children. So I think it was like 20 years ago when I started, you know, chasing that question and asking people around, like, why do people have children? I even saw a psychiatrist just to, make sure that it's not something that's wrong with me. But I couldn't find any really a logical reason as to why one should have children and why I should have children. So there was a period of time where I started identifying myself as a child-free person, and this was like very like 20 years ago when Yahoo groups and all those things were there. So there used to be groups called Child Free, and people used to talk about that at that time. Later on, as years went on, David Benetta's work came to the foreground. He wrote a book called Better Never to Have Been: The Harm of Coming into Existence, and antinatalism really picked up. And at that time, over a period of a few years, I would say, I switched from being child free, which was like my personal choice that I don't understand why I should have children, so I won't have it. If other people feel so, they may. From that position, I changed to the antinatalist position, where I, was convinced that it is rather morally wrong to have children in the first place, irrespective of who I am. So that was a shift. Nonetheless, I never had children, so I'm still child free, and I'm also antinatalist now.
So, do men feel welcomed in child-free spaces? Why or why not? Robert, we'll start with you.
Well, I always felt welcome. I've never felt any kind of weird energy from people, me being in a child-free space. Um, I've talked to some gentlemen, sometimes they feel a little awkward because I don't know if it's just the vibe some women give them, like, okay, you're only in this space to hook up with women. But me personally, I've never had any kind of
Guys would never do that.
Yeah. So
I really want to say something, but
Go
I
ahead.
am
Graham, step up.
Yeah, so from the online research and reading I've done, and sort of the groups that I'm in, I admit the vast majority of sort of content and commentary that I've been seeing is sort of aimed towards women, and I can fully understand why. Given the societal pressure and impact physically that childbirth and that sort of thing has on being a female. I wouldn't say that as a male I felt unwelcomed per se, but I think there could be more of a sort of male angle, especially on like content online, especially on how we can support women as well, and encouraging child-free men to get things like vasectomies and how they can support each other as well. But in a nutshell, no, I've not felt unwelcomed, and so it's a great community to be part of.
Tejas, how about you?
I have had similar experience. Like I've never felt unwelcomed. But I think the question is, do men feel welcomed? So it's not like, do I feel welcomed? Men in general, I would say that the only place where they might not really be welcomed is there's a large section of child-free slash antinatalist community in men who are, like misogynist, MACTOWs and MRAs. I'm not perfect. I'm not against raising voice of any of the rights violations for men, but there is some misogyny going on, and if a person with that attitude comes in a community, I think it's reasonable that that person is unwelcome. But other than that, in general, I don't feel men are unwelcomed. I think I haven't experienced myself or seen it for other men.
Yeah, you raised a good point there.
So, why are men not taking a bigger vocal role or active role in child-free communities? You feel this might be speculation, but what are your thoughts on that, Robert? Go ahead.
I guess my personal opinion about it, it kind of touched on it earlier. Graham kind of touched on it earlier. I think a lot of stuff is geared more towards women in the community. It seems like sometimes there's a little bit more pressure on women to have kids, have families, because that's their traditional. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a mother. You're supposed to be a wife. Um, I guess sometimes with men, it's a little bit more acceptable if a man's just he's a bachelor, he doesn't have a family. It's just okay, he's just a bachelor, a playboy. I don't know, it seems like sometimes there's a little bit more pressure on women, so maybe men just don't feel like we need to step up.
Thank you, Graham. Go ahead.
Yeah, to sort of further what Robert just said about this, I think currently there's this sort of belief that being child-free is very much only an issue that affects women. So I think maybe there's a sort of subconscious hesitancy from men not to be, more quote vocal, because we don't want to take away, from the spotlight, taking that away from what is traditionally believed to be only a woman's issue. But I agree that I think men could take a bigger role on how being child-free affects them and just being more vocal. And how we do that, I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that, but platforms like this are definitely a start. Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, I think we just need to be more supportive and just show that courage to actually just speak up more and getting our thoughts out there.
Thank you. Tejas, go ahead.
I have sort of two observations on this. One is I've gone through different studies about child freedom in overall, and there have been studies like made since 1980s till the latest one, which was like Michigan State University. All of them more generally don't really um, have any, like they say, there's no really difference between men and women in terms of how many want to be child free. But unfortunately, I haven't come across a study where we can markedly show that men are not vocal as compared to any other groups or genders. But at the same time, I also have a subjective experience that online, at least in the online communities, in the child-free area, it's more women talking. And it could be a manifestation that women are pressurized more and they feel the need to talk about it more than men. That might be a result of that. That's one point. But on the other side, what I've also seen is that um, when if you look at the antinatalist literature, not just the child-free literature, then it is all male-dominated, more or less. If you take antinatalist community at large, it is male dominated. And there are indicators like you can check Exploring Antinatalism podcast, which is run by Amanda, for example. Majority of the guests over there are male. If you take some serious philosophers in antinatalism, like David Bennett, or Karim Akarma, Thomas Metzinger, Arthur Schopenhauer, these are all men. Not everybody, but in general, it's majority, it's male dominated. And there's a reason to that, that antinatalism is rather a philosophy, and philosophy and science and mathematics have traditionally been dominated by men. Not because women are not capable of it, but because our society had been structured patriarchally. But what I also feel is that when men actually start talking about child freedom, and when I say talking about, I mean really doing some serious literature or serious work on child freedom, I there might be a this is my hypothesis, there might be a chance that it really the arguments come out as antinatalist arguments. So it could be that child-free community is more women oriented, whereas antinatalism is more male dominated, and these two fields can complement each other. Um, yeah, that's what I think. These are the 2 points I've thought about.
That's a super interesting thought. And if anybody wants to pick that up
Yes.
as a case study, have at it. Like, yeah, if the antinatalist space is more male dominated with the dialogue that's happening, and child free, from what I've seen in the Facebook communities and forums, it's usually like a 15% are men, and 85% are women that are engaged in the activities and the dialogue in the group. And so it seems like it's almost switched on its head. Yet the communities, though they are completely different with being antinatalist and child free, there is some gray area and crossover. But it's strange that it is like that. I've never thought of that before. That's a great point.
And yet with Childfree Convention, I'm the only woman. I'm working with 2 guys.
Hey, I want to give you your statistics. So it looks like my group has 10% male
Okay.
and 90% women. So yeah,
And your
You
group
could have
has
just texted
how many
that.
people in it? Your Facebook group?
8,200.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Okay.
So yeah. So there's
What
some
group?
actual facts there, stats.
What group was that? Sorry.
That's a best child free life possible on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. And we have an incoming question. Let her fly. All right. For Tejas, have you received a lot of pushback from your family community due to being antinatalist?
Yes and no. I mean, my immediate family has been very understanding, even though they're very traditional. Um, I haven't got an explicit pushback from the larger community, but at the same time, I feel that almost the entire system is designed for people who are married and have children after a certain age. So it's not like I've got a pushback from individuals, but it's a systemic pushback that, like everything is geared towards certain, people with children. And you feel like, this is not a system built for you. So that way, a systemic pushback I have experienced, not from individuals.
Okay. I think Jared wanted to just jump in the channel because there's a bunch of dudes in here and he wanted to be a part of it.
God does like, wait, what?
Getting the boy club here.
I can leave.
No. I'm kind of rethinking this next question based off of what Tejas kind of shared with the antinatalist community. But so I'll say the question and give my thoughts on it too. Why do you think men tend to be a little bit more ambivalent about the conversation of having a kid or not? And the reason I'm questioning that now is that's coming from a child-free standpoint, because it seems like in the child-free community, men seem very ambivalent. It's like, oh, I could have a kid, I could not have a kid, but it doesn't seem that way in the antinatalist community. But so from a child-free standpoint, why does it seem like men are kind of like they could go with the flow of whatever their spouse might want? Robert, we'll start with you.
I thought about this question. I think some of it has to do with I guess somewhat the pressure of that term legacy. Like I know men are really pushed, like we have to, it's legacy.
Yeah.
And I can say I'm a junior. I'm named after my father. I know a lot of men that's that's in the back of the head. Like I want somebody to carry on my name of the family. And I think that's just sometimes that pressure just of you know, how are you going to be remembered? Um, yeah, it really is a difficult one because kind of like Cody was saying, I mean, a lot of men do have that. Yeah, I could have a kid. I don't have to have one. A lot of them can go either way. It's just, you know, if I have a child, I have a child. If not, you know, I'll make it work.
Yeah, yeah. Graham, your deep thoughts.
Yeah. I think you reframed the question now, so slightly. Yeah, I honestly think a lot of it, for a lot of men, it's really a bit of a non-issue. If I'm being honest, as they, you know, they're sort of quite blasé about it. Like, yeah, if I have a kid, I have a kid. If I don't, I don't. If I meet the right person, if I don't, it's all cool. And I think one of the reasons the sort of thinking is quite prevalent is just because more men just haven't actually had that introspection and sort of taking that time to reflect, as Ted just mentioned earlier, taking that time to actually reflect, is this for me? Is this something I want to do? And just actually having that inward conversation and making that decision. So I mean, just from my own personal experience, I've tried to have conversations with, my male friends who are child free or haven't had kids or aren't married or are still deciding or even have kids. And I ask the question, why have you had kids? Or why, do you think you're going to have kids? And they almost give me this like confused look, like they haven't thought about it, which is just really insane, given that it's such a huge life-changing decision. So I just think for a lot of men, it just hasn't entered their thought process, which is just absolutely baffling for me.
Yeah. Tejas, what are your thoughts on this?
What Graham said actually makes sense, but I would want to expand more on that point. I think there's a sort of a natural asymmetry in term when it comes to procreation. Women have a bigger or I would say more severe investment to do when they have child. So if you're a woman, you're thinking whether to have a child or not, uh, you get different parameters to think about as compared to if you're a man and thinking about it. I'm using men and women in traditional terms, as inseminators and gestators. But the point is that men don't have that bodily investment to do. Obviously, there's financial investment and it's a long-term investment. We're not very good at thinking long-term. That's quite obvious. But women have bodily investment and a short-term severe investment. So I think that is why men aren't thinking seriously about it. That's what I think. This is hypothesis. I don't have data to claim evidence for it.
Yeah.
I have so many questions, but I have nothing to do with being child free. I'm thinking men don't think long term. Well, that explains these guys I've been working with.
No, I meant humans in general are not good at thinking in terms of long.
That's true. I'm going to say men, but yes, fair enough. So why do you think men change their mind and decide to have a child while they're in a relationship?
And kind of adding on to that with a child-free person, because what we've seen in a lot of the Facebook groups and forums is we see someone make a post saying that my long-term boyfriend or my husband now wants to have a child. What do I do? And so why do you think that does happen? And we're kind of speculative here, but yeah.
Robert, go ahead.
Okay, my personal opinion, I feel that person probably they weren't set on being child free. Usually it kind of goes back to the last question we had where they were kind of on the fence about it. It was more of, if it happens, it happens. If not, it doesn't. My opinion, somebody who's actually made a decision like, yes, I'm going to be child free, they probably wouldn't go that route. But I do know a lot of men do feel pressure, again, going back to that legacy. And a term I've heard most of my life is, when are you going to settle down and have a family? For some reason, if you don't have kids, clearly you settle that you're still acting like a child. So maybe some people just feel that pressure of, family, society, that, I'm going to be looked at as, not taking life serious if I don't settle down and start having kids, and have a traditional family.
And Graham, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Robert took the words basically out of my mouth, to be honest. But yeah, fully agree with what you said there, Robert. I think just to add to that, that if a man goes into a relationship thinking I don't want kids, and his mind gets changed, not in every case, but I think obviously you mentioned society pressure and it's just the thing to do, right? But I think in a lot of cases it's really about fear of the relationship ending, and I'll do anything to keep my partner happy. So often it's about pleasing the other people, and without giving much consideration to how it may affect them personally, which I think is just wrong on every level. But yeah, that's what I'd add to your answer, Robert.
Thank you. Tejas, go ahead.
I might give a slightly different perspective here. One is that the claim that they do change the mind. Again, I think we're talking here just like social media observations or subjective experiences. I haven't come across any statistical study about it. The Michigan State study, again, I'm referring to, which also said that people who decide to be child free in their early teens remain so. They don't really change their mind, and the difference isn't that much in between men and women. That's what is that study says, I think. But even if we take the claim that men do change the mind later on in the life with a child free partner. One case comes to my mind. There was a case, I think, a few months ago. It was in India, where parents of a man uh, sued him because he wasn't giving them a grandson. I bring that example just to show the kind of pressure there is on men even. The other perspective I have is that on the right side, and I have seen many cases in person, like actual cases. When I say right side, I mean on the right wing side. It looks like more men are attracted towards the concepts of nationalism, religious, religion, or any sort of groupism. It looks like on the right wing side, more men are motivated. And there's always a rhetoric going on in those circles that it's your country, you need to have these many people, you need to produce, you need to give sons to your country, or you need to give sons to your religion, blah blah. The other religion is growing, so you need to compete with that. So there are so many propagandas around that, and I have seen personally men falling for those propagandas. That probably is one of the reasons, in my opinion, but again, that's a hypothesis.
Thank you. All right. So we are at the end of our panel, unfortunately. Thank you so much for joining us. So, quick wrap up. How can people reach you? Anything you want to plug? Let us know. Robert, go ahead.
If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram at Robert Graham Photos. It's all one word. Feel free to send me a message and let me know you saw me on the, on here. That would probably get you approved a little faster. But
Hashtag
yeah.
men knit.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
there you go. Well, yeah, that's it. Just feel free to reach out to me. So
Thank you. Graham, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really use social media that much. I don't have Instagram or anything like that. But if you want to reach out, I'm on Facebook. You can find me. I'm the guy with the fluffy cat next to his face. That's my profile picture, and also on LinkedIn. So yeah, feel free to get in contact with me. Always happy to connect with people.
Thank you. And Tejas.
I'm probably same as Graham. I am not on much social media, but again, I'm on Facebook. It's the same photo which was used in this convention's posters. You can find it and LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being here, including Cody. And thank you for your contribution to our weekend event. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for organizing.
Thank you very much. Bye.